The following podcast is a spoiler filled movie review. If you have not seen this film, we encourage you to go watch it first and then come back and listen to the show. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Welcome to the Third Generation Wrestling Podcast with your hosts, Eric and Rob.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Third Generation Wrestling Podcast, 3GW. Here on a Monday night recording our third official movie review. I'm your host, Mr. Eric, joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob. What's going on, sir?
Hey, man. Not too much. Pretty happy about the Super Bowl results. I am a Denver Bronco fan, which means the Kansas City Chiefs are a divisional rival. We play them twice a year. I live in the Midwest, so there are a lot of Chiefs fans where I live. I can't stand the Chiefs, so I am happy with the way the Super Bowl turned out. Chiefs took a beat down. Loved it. So I'm in a good mood.
Well, I didn't have a dog in the race, so I just wanted a good game, but it was more of an ass kicking than a good game. But hey, we are of course joined by MJ Book. What's going on?
As always, man, good to be here, and I have to agree with Mr. Rob. Although I'm a Niners fan, so last year I had to tolerate those damn Chiefs beating my team's butt, and Rob was sitting right next to me, so he knows how pissed off I was that night. So seeing the Chiefs, or I didn't even see it because I was too afraid, but knowing that the Chiefs got their butts beat, that's a joy for me.
Well, again, I just, hats off to Tom Brady for, reasons that I like I said, I just wanted a good game. And I felt like, a couple, curious calls there, but at the end of the day, that's not going to win you or lose the game. So, any event, like I said, we're here to do our movie review of probably the best wrestling movie made that I can think of. As far as quality and actors and the cast, The Wrestler. This movie came out in 2008. Stars Mickey Rourke, Marissa Tomei, Evan Rachel Wood, and Ernest Miller. Directed by Darren Aronofsky, who also directed Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream. The budget on this film was $6 million. This was an independent film, so that's why it was so low. But it grossed over $44 million. So it made its money. Rob, so I know that you and I had seen this movie before, but I know, Book, this was your first time watching, which we'll get to. I know
I had seen it at least once, maybe twice, but it had been a long time. But I was more than happy to go back and revisit it because I thought it was such a great film.
Well, this was a movie when I first heard about it that I was interested in seeing. It's just I just never got around to watching it, never got to the theaters to watch it. I didn't know anybody really that told me that they had it. And it just never, I stopped watching regular TV, so I wasn't watching it there. It's not on Amazon Prime for free. It's not on Hulu. So it just never came around for me to watch it. So I was glad that this review was going to happen, gave me the chance to finally watch it.
Yeah, I mean, we had to get to it eventually after we got through the shit, literally. The last movie review. Oh, man.
Still having nightmares.
So just a couple side notes about this film. Obviously, anytime something like this gets made, old Vincent King McMahon, people always want to know what he thinks. He actually gave this film his blessing. He watched it and he, obviously he approved of it because he had Mickey Rourke on at WrestleMania that year, WrestleMania 25. Probably the first Mania I believe that us three sat and watched, if I recall. That was Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels 1.
Might have been, yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that match, though, that card was shit.
Yeah, that card was shit.
It was, but I tell you what, that one match was incredible. That made up for it.
Yeah, that was a lot of emotion in that match.
And also, didn't Ricky Steamboat he was part of a tag team in that WrestleMania, wasn't he? Ricky Steamboat had kind of a comeback, and he was great in that match.
Was that the Jericho?
That was the Jericho thing, yeah.
Yeah, it was the elimination. I think it was like 3-on-1. Piper, right. Flair, Ricky versus Jericho, I think.
Yeah, but Ricky the Dragon looked awesome that night.
Oh, he looked like Ricky of old.
This movie got a lot of awards and nominations. It won the Golden Lion Award at the Venice International Film Festival. Roger Ebert claimed it was one of the best films of the entire year, 2008. Rotten Tomatoes score of 98%. Rourke would go on to win a Golden Globe and an Independent Spirit Award, and he was also nominated for Best Actor. Marissa Tomei was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. So a lot of star power, a lot of acting chops in this film. I guess we can go ahead and get to the plot and get to the review. So Robin Ramzinski, a.k.a. Randy the Ram Robinson, played by Mickey Rourke, is a professional wrestler who rose to prominence in the 1980s as one of the top superstars ever. Fast forward 20 years later, and the Ram isn't holding up so well. Barely able to pay his rent, wrestling in high school gyms and bingo halls, as well as working part-time at a grocery store. As if that wasn't enough, after a brutal hardcore match, Randy suffers a heart attack, putting the possibility of ever wrestling again out of the question, and he retires from the squared circle. Feeling mortality knocking on Randy's door, he reaches out to his estranged daughter, Stephanie, played by Evan Rachel Wood, and stripper he has feelings for, Pam, played by Marissa Tomei. But when the downward spiral of rejection from Pam and then missing dinner with his daughter, Randy returns to the ring for one last match, and he can feel his heart failing him toward the end. But feeling that he has nothing left to lose, he goes out on top, hitting the Ram Jam as the credits roll. Yes. So I always have to start off these movie reviews asking Rob, hey, what did you feel about how this opened? Because this opened kind of different than our last two movies. You get the opening reel of like the news cutouts. And I'm only pointing this out because there's an interesting fact with this. So those news cutouts where they kind of de-age Mickey Rourke in those photos. Do you know the wrestler they used?
No.
Some of the pictures did look a little.
They look familiar.
A couple of them.
It was Lex Luger.
Oh, okay, that pose. That's what I was seeing. That dang pose.
That's interesting. Okay, That's interesting because I wouldn't have guessed that.
So yeah, they kind of spliced his and Lex's face, and and the body type. So that I mean, if you weren't looking too hard, you couldn't really tell. It looked good, but obviously we know that's not him. And then we fade to black and we cut to modern day, and Randy had just finished a match in his dressing room, which is a elementary school classroom, which should tell you a lot about where he's performing these days. And he gets his payout, and I guess it's a lot cheaper than he was expecting because I guess the crowd didn't show up that night. So the house was a little short. After signing autographs, he heads home to his trailer, and he realizes the locks have been changed because he is late on his rent, and ends up sleeping in his van, which ironically is made by Ram. And we see kind of how probably a lot of wrestlers at least back in the day, dealt with, pain after the match, after the adrenaline wears off. We all know the stories of, pain meds and alcohol. And we see a little bit of it here.
Well, I mean, we've all been wrestling fans a long time, and we know what happens to these guys once they get older. They're still going around, and they're in smaller venues, and right off the bat, there's Randy sitting in that kindergarten elementary room. That signified how far he had fallen. I mean, that intro said basically he was Hulk Hogan almost, and now he's changing in a kindergarten room. That's right there. They already are tugging at you right there, seeing how far he's fallen, and yet he's still doing it. Common story.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it just kind of, and like the way he just popped them in his mouth, started chewing them like they were candy. I mean, that kind of stood out to me. And then obviously he pops open a can of beer, and that's how it's just kind of sad. Can't even go in his own house.
And I kind of like what they did camera-wise. That just kept showing his back for a long time. You didn't even see his face. You just saw his back. I kind of like that camera work that they were doing with that. I thought that was a very good decision to just keep showing his back for quite a long time before you even see his face.
Oh, when the film opened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
like
I think it was signifying something that nothing matters on the outside. Everything that matters to him, his face, his being, is out there. I think that's what they were trying to signify. Maybe I'm overlooking it.
No. There is such a thing called juxtaposition, and so that's a very keen observation. I also enjoyed the score for this film. I thought it was so perfect for the mood and putting you in the mood and understanding his pain.
Clint Mansell, I think his name is.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's the only time he's not in pain. Mental pain. He's in a lot of physical pain. Mental pain, which could be worse, is when he's in the ring.
Obviously, this film, immediately you know that it's different than the previous films that we talked about. This film is a serious take on the wrestling business. It strips away all of the glamour, all of the glitz, and it shows you what some of these performers, even who end up performing at a high level, how low they can fall, because the wrestling business is not always a nice business. There's no pension plan, there's no insurance. Once you're done, you're done. And we've talked many times on our podcasts recently, and I'm not going to name the wrestler because he's not the only wrestler, but why some of these wrestlers keep coming back to get those paychecks, to get that money, because once you're done, you're done. It's hard for these wrestlers. Once you've reached that peak and you've been in that spotlight, it's hard to just go away and you don't know anything else. And so that's, to me, what was so interesting about this film is the very realistic look it gave us at the business.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna get a lot more deep into it. I mean, later on we see a scene at a convention, and he's looking around and he sees all these guys with, the one's in a wheelchair, one's hooked up to a Foley bag, and it's just like, is this where I'm headed? I gave my body, and this is what I get for it, and it's sad.
Yeah, and I don't think we should say too much about the film because obviously we want people to watch it, but yeah, we'll say more about it, but yeah, it's just you have to watch it. It's really a great film.
You do, even though we're giving away things, you have to see it, and like I said, the score really helps grip you and help you understand the mood. I really enjoyed this film. Next day, we see Randy at his real job, the grocery store, and he's asking for extra hours. And his boss is like, "Well, did the price of tights go up?" I guess he gets them. And then we cut to a wrestling locker room. And this was the most interesting scene in the whole movie to me. because we get this locker room, you kind of see like the brotherhood of what a independent show would look like. Randy's the only one that has his own dressing room. Everybody else, gets changed in one room. The promoter runs down the card, and then I like that you got to see a little bit of the business. This is kind of when kayfabe started to die because this movie came out. You can see the wrestlers putting together their matches, talking through it. I really like the one guy who was like, "Don't work his leg, man. Everybody works the leg." And then it's like, "Work the neck." And it's like, "Oh, you guys are working the neck? Oh, okay." So it makes me think like, damn, did that still go on today where they're in the locker room and they're, want to make sure that they don't step on anybody else's toes and do what somebody else did. Um, and then of course the conversation with Tommy and Randy going over their match. They don't give us a whole lot, but they just kind of glance over it just to give you an idea of kind of what goes on in the locker room. I thought it was pretty cool. And of course we get to see Randy cutting up the blade, taping it to his wrist.
Well, I think one thing I remember as a kid watching wrestling during the days of kayfabing, you'd see a guy bleed. People who weren't wrestling fans always said, well, it's a blood packet. They're using a pill. It's not. And what this film shows you is that no, the blood is real. And these guys are taking razor blades and slicing their head open. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And I was just glad to see that aspect of the movie portrayed and opening up people's eyes about what this business really is. When you're calling it fake and you're calling it phony, not really an accurate description when you know what truly goes on inside those ropes.
Totally agree. There was an old wrestling saying, red equals green. And that just was an old saying, the blood meant the money. And even though they're not going to be getting a whole lot of money at a show like this, they're still having to put everything on the line just to get the little bit they can just to scrape by. I mean, I watched I think it was called Get in the Ring or whatever it was, one of the makings of features that's on the DVD. And there was a guy talking about the first thing you learn when you go to school is how to fall. And if you don't get that right, you can't get anything right. So this was just a very interesting look at the wrestling business that not a lot of people probably truly understand. That's why I've always hated when people say wrestling is fake. You can say predetermined, fine, but there ain't nothing fake about getting hit with a chair. There's nothing fake about getting thrown to the ground. So this was a very good look at what goes on behind the curtain. And I like that.
Yeah, I did too. So getting to the match, makes his entrance to the ring, playing some 1970s rock music, and he walks around the ring and he bangs a chair off his head, as you just mentioned. And then the match starts with top wrist lock into an arm lock with Tommy, and then Ram counters hitting a clothesline. Then Tommy hits a low blow, getting the heat, and hits elbow drops, a helicopter slam that takes out the referee, and then Tommy throws out the ref. This is one of the things that not a lot of people talk about: misdirection in a wrestling match. It's easy to do if you're watching at home. They can obviously pan the camera somewhere else. But I've been to plenty of live shows where I should have seen what happened and still didn't because the art of misdirection. Keeping my eyes on what's actually going on, taking them off what the fallen wrestler's doing. So this gives Randy an opportunity to take the blade out, cut himself. Mickey Rourke legitimately cut himself.
I saw that. Yeah.
He takes 2 headshots to the turnbuckle, hulks up, super kick, and ram jam, which is essentially a flying headbutt. Which I thought, since I hadn't seen the movie in so long, I couldn't remember if he was having head injuries or heart problems. But as we'll find out, it was the heart. But yeah, he gets the pin to win. Pretty good. I thought it was, for a movie match, you don't get so much. But That was pretty good. Post match in the locker room, the promoter's talking to Randy about facing the Ayatollah for a rematch 20 years later, which is pretty relevant to today's wrestling. As we get lots of rematches, and as Rob said, these old wrestlers coming back. It is what it is. I mean, these guys are even doing other things. Some, as we all know, most wrestlers go on to do movies, start businesses, but they just never get rid of that bug. And I like after that, Randy's in the locker room with all the guys and they're clapping. He says, "All right, guys, come on, so we'll take a shower together."
I love our camaraderie.
Yeah. And well, I guess it's a good thing Doc's not on here because
Oh boy.
we cut to the strip club called Cheeks. It's not spelled like it normally spell. It's CHEQES, QUES. And this is obviously where we meet, I'm sure, Book's favorite character in the film, Cassie, aka Pam, played by Marissa Tomei. This is Mickey Rourke's love interest, obviously. She's the hot yet oldest stripper in the club. So a lot of the young guys just, it's not their thing. And she's in the VIP room. These guys are heckling her, giving her a hard time. It's like, well, why do we get you? You're like, you're old enough to be my mom. Da 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 da. Randy runs in, kind of threatens to whoop everybody's ass. I should have wrote down a line. He said something along the lines of, "This is the she's finer than any pussy you're gonna marry," or something along those lines. He said. This is the only scene that took me back to Ready to Rumble right here.
Oh
He's
Jesus.
got Marissa Tomei giving him a lap dance, titties out, and he's talking about wrestling.
It's his world, man. It is his. I personally, if Marissa Tomei's on my lap, the last thing I'm thinking about is wrestling. Well, maybe wrestling her, but that's about it.
Exactly. But see, I read this scene a little differently. Is that not only was she was more than just a stripper to him. She was an outlet. He lived a lonely life. He's estranged from his daughter. His only real relationships are his comrades in the locker room. So she was his outlet to just kind of vent his frustrations or just to talk about whatever he was dealing with at the time. To him, she was more than just a stripper.
She was the medium between the wrestling world and the real world. Right. She kind of was that middle role, that middle part.
Right. Yeah. I get that, but
a good-looking middle part.
But it take 5 minutes and just enjoy. Especially when you're paying $60 for 5 minutes. I'm just saying.
I doubt it was his first time. So.
Yeah, those punks pissed me off. It's like I told you, Rob, right before we started recording. It's like, well, you'd rather have the other ones. Marissa was the finest one in there, and you want the other ones. I think this might have been done before the MILF era really kicked in.
Yeah,
because obviously nowadays that's exactly what people want. So that had to have been before the MILF era.
Yeah, I was a little thrown by that. I'm like, how many guys I know that would love, especially like when they're younger, they're like best friend's mom. They had a crush on. Like, come on.
Yeah, this was before the MILF era. I don't know when American Pie got made, but this is clearly before MILF, Stifler's mom, before all that stuff kicked in.
Oh no, American Pie is way older than this.
It is, but the MILF era didn't really kick in yet. That really wasn't it was starting to be a word, but it really kicked in much, much later in a different fashion.
I think 2010s, yeah, it definitely started up and just shot to the roof, All right, so this next thing is pretty interesting. We're at the gym in the locker room, and Randy is getting steroids and painkillers from Greg, played by Scott Siegel. All right, real quick. I looked this guy up because I'm like, man, this dude looks like Kurt Fuller with muscles. So I was like, okay, he looks like he could be a real wrestler. So I looked him up. Turns out this guy was sentenced to 63 months in prison for possession and distribution of steroids and assaulting
Oh
police.
God. How ironic.
Yeah.
No wonder he knew his line so well.
Oh yeah. The way he was spitting it. Oh, and so after he was arrested, they go and they, investigate your home. They found 1,500 bottles of steroids.
Well, come on, look at him.
1,500.
Look at him.
Well, he wasn't taking all that. He was just distributing.
Yeah, but
But
somebody like that, is going to have the best stuff just looking at him.
yeah, and then cut to Randy obviously shooting up, and then he's working out, but it looks like it's just painful, just doing bicep curls sitting down. Like he is really beat up. Like that's why I said the only time he escapes is in that ring. Then we get a montage, kind of like a day in the life, how he has to get ready and keep his look. So he goes and gets his hair done because he's got the long hair and the streaks. Then he goes to get tan. Then he goes shopping for props for the match coming up.
That was funny.
Oh yeah, with the clerk.
Yeah, they're beating each other up and breaking stuff.
Yeah, he broke the pan over his back. Yeah. We cut to the scene in the locker room again, and so he's talking to Necro Butcher. That's the wrestler's name in this hardcore match or death match. I think it had to be a death match. And this guy's talking like, yeah, we got to keep the running to a minimum. My back and my knees are bad. But hey, how do you feel about staples? Like, what the fuck? You just said you can't run, can't fall. I think I got one good bump in me.
Stand still to get staples.
Oh my God. Okay. And then, we get to the end of the match. They cut to the end of the match first. And my God, this dude's covered in blood. Scrapes of barbed wire cuts all down his back and torso. And Randy hits him over the head, looks like a window, and pins him. Then they, kind of cut back and forth between the locker room, and they give us actual parts of the match, starting with, them just slapping each other, sitting down, which is like kind of a classic old school thing. And then you see them fighting in the crowd, and then they really get the barbed wire that jabbed into Randy's abdomen. It was just a seriously hardcore. Rob, we always talk about these kind of things when they get excessive in these death matches. So I'm just like, wow, you got all this shit going on, and then you're doing this.
Well, what I've always said about these matches is that it's not really my thing. I don't feel like you have to go that far to entertain me. And another thing with this movie is that the reason why these guys do it is, first of all, they just have a passion and a love for the business. They have a passion and a love for the fans and hearing those cheers and hearing the chants for very little money. In most cases, when they're doing these matches, they do it for very little money. So while I'm uncomfortable with these kinds of matches, I admire the fact that these guys have such a passion for the business and such a passion for the fans that they're willing to put themselves through this enormous punishment just for our entertainment. So I'm conflicted about it. I respect it, but at the same time, I don't like it.
Well, Book, you are the resident ECW fan, so very curious. You have a very harsh grading system when it comes to hardcore. So
I loved the hardcore segment. That was one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie was the hardcore segment. It took me back. It took me back to those good days of ECW. It took me back to when I was watching the death matches from Japan. Um, I know that a lot of people are squeamish about those kind of things, but I love those kind of matches. They are, maybe I'm just a sick human being that plays to when I went back in a long time ago when I did the backyard wrestling. It's just, I like that stuff. I liked it. And it was one of my favorite scenes. And it shows, again, the reality of those kind of matches, that they're brutal and nobody gets out alive. They're brutal.
Well, they got out alive. They didn't get out the same. I think it changed when you go back. Like seeing Randy have glass pulled out his back, how his back was all riddled, and the barbed wire getting sewn up in his stomach, and the doctor pulling the staples out of him. He's like, "Hey, sit still." I said, "Still? What the fuck are you pulling the staples out of me?" And then we kind of get to where the movie kind of turns. Randy's left alone in the locker room for a little bit. He gets up and he stumbles and he just passes out. And we cut to him in the hospital, and turns out he's had a heart attack. I guess he had to have open heart surgery. Obviously, he did. Um, the doctor comes in. He's asking how he feels, and this is just, I guess, a wrestler's mentality. Like they're just like, "Yeah, I'm good. So how long you think before I can get back to doing my thing? And the doctor's like, "Yeah, no, you can't do this no more. You almost died." He's like, "But I'm a professional wrestler. This is all I know how to do." Like, well, if you do it again, you're probably gonna die. You can handle like some light workouts or whatever, but a whole wrestling match is not gonna happen. We get from there. We see him, going to the pharmacy and getting his meds and all that stuff. Um, and then we get kind of life after wrestling for Randy, and he's at home and there was a scene earlier where you see him playing with the kids in the trailer park. He sees one of them that he knows and he invites him over to play some video games on Nintendo.
I like that scene too.
And the kid's like, "Yeah, this is cool. Hey, you ever play Call of Duty?" He's like, he can't even say it. He's like, "Call of Duty? What? Call of Duty? What?"
Well, he couldn't even hear him.
Well, yeah, that's the thing I didn't talk about either. He's wearing a hearing aid the entire movie except for when he wrestles. And they play like one match, and the kid's like, "Yeah, this is fun, but I want to get back to playing with my friends." So Randy goes off. He goes back to Cheeks, meet up with Pam, and I guess he hadn't been there in a while. She hadn't seen him, and that's when he breaks it to her that, "Hey, I had a heart attack," and he's trying to. I guess this is what happens when something life changing happens to you, where your mortality is challenged. You start really thinking, and he just flat out says, "Hey, you want to be together?" And not so much words, but that's what he was getting at. He wanted to be with somebody. He didn't want to be alone anymore. And she's kind of let him down easy and said, "Hey, don't you have a daughter? Maybe you should seek out a relationship with her first." Yeah, he's like, "My daughter fucking hates me." And these scenes with his daughter really hit different for me, being a dad with a daughter. And I would hope that, no matter what, that I never got to this stage with any of my kids where it's like we're so distant that we know nothing about each other's lives going on. Where Randy goes to meet his daughter. Well, first he tried to call her. I guess he had a phone number and was trying it, all of them, and other phone numbers on the back of a photo. How he got her address, I guess there were still phone books around back then, so he was able to look her up. And she pretty much tells him to fuck off. And I don't care if you had a heart attack. And that is some cold-blooded shit. I mean, really, really, really cold-blooded. I mean, I get it. Somebody's not around. But, man, at least hear him out. I don't know. Uh, what do you all think?
Well, how many times have we heard that from wrestlers' kids? I mean, what I think about is Jake the Snake Roberts at
That's
that point.
exactly what I thought about.
I was thinking of Jake the whole time with that because we've seen and heard what his daughter said numerous times, and including on the Beyond the Mat. I mean, which say what you want to. I mean, Jake doesn't like that movie, but I immediately thought of Jake. She couldn't stand being around him, and it was awkward and it was uncomfortable. These wrestlers, Austin has talked about it. He's missed a lot of birthdays. He didn't get to see his kids grow up because he was always on the road. Those guys are on the road like 300 days out of the year almost.
Or more. Flair. All of Flair's kids don't feel the same way about him that Charlotte does.
Nope.
Some of them hate him.
Some of them hate him. She's the oddity.
He wasn't there. He wasn't there for birthdays. He wasn't there for the class recitals. He was gone all the time. He wasn't there for Christmas. You know, all of his daughters and sons' classmates would say, "Hey, saw your dad on TV," and they'd be like, "Yeah, so did I. I don't see him in person, but I see him on TV." I mean, so I think, look, I don't know if I can say I understand where she's coming from, but obviously he wasn't the best dad. Obviously he wasn't around, and that's obviously she's been deeply affected by it. So I know it seems cold-blooded, but in her mind, she's totally justified because he wasn't there when she needed him.
Yeah. So he goes back to Pam because this was her idea, and he tells her, "Well, it didn't go well." And he says, "Well, maybe if I get her a gift, maybe she'll come around." And she says, "Okay." And she's starting to slowly feel like she doesn't belong at Cheeks anymore because she's not getting the business. On top of that, she's starting to feel a little lonely as well. So she agrees to help Randy shop for his daughter, which was a godsend because he probably would have only bought the green coat. He wouldn't have bought the peach coat.
that was bad. I mean, he said it was rock and roll. It's like, your daughter's not rock and roll, man. You're thinking to yourself.
Like, well, has an S on there for Stephanie. Like, is she 5? But I do like how that eventually did play out when we get to it. So they go shopping, and you can tell he's not really used to talking to a woman. Like Rob said, this is the only woman that he's really looked at and had feelings for. He told her, "Hey, you look nice outside a strip club. You look clean."
You look clean.
Like, damn. That's what her reaction was perfect. She was like, "Clean."
It was a nice comeback though for him. He made up for it with the next one.
Yeah. He cleaned it up a little bit, but it was, so he convinces her to go get a beer afterwards, and they're in the bar dancing, and they end up kissing. And first it looks like she's into it, and then all of a sudden she's not. We see this sometimes in films where people kind of get in their own head and they can't enjoy the moment, and that's pretty much what happened. And it breaks down. And he says, "Oh, you owe me a beer." She's like, "Yeah, I do." Chugged it.
That was hot. That was hot.
She pretty much backs off and kind of leaves him hanging. And so then we see Randy. He goes back to Stephanie's house for a second time. Her little black girlfriend was just, I don't get it why she was a bitch in the movie. Like, this is her dad. Why are you being an asshole? It's not like some dude trying to hook up with her.
Daughter's probably said a lot of bad things about her dad and probably to her. So her only knowledge probably about the daughter's dad is that he's just a prick. And
yeah, but I don't know. I guess to me, out of respect, I would think he was just, I don't know. You don't know her dad. You only know what she's told you. I don't know. I just think she didn't have to be that, cruel. But in this scene particularly, he catches her before she goes in the house. He gives her the green the green thing first, and she's like, thanks, but you know, and remember, I hadn't seen this in so long, so I'm thinking that's all he had for her, but no, he did get the real coat too. So I was like, okay, thank God, because that was not going to go over well.
No, that wasn't gonna go. That would have been a failure.
And I really, really appreciate the next scene. I really thought Mickey Rourke's acting chops came out in this scene when they're walking along the water. They're just talking. He's talking about the haunted house that she used to want to go into, and the real touching moment when Rourke just bleeds his heart out and says, "Look, I know I wasn't there for you, and I should have been a provider, and I wasn't. I'm alone now. I deserve to be alone now, and at the end of the day, I just don't want you to hate me." And that was like, wow, that's deep. Because I think we all know people that don't have the best relationship with their parents, or just friends. It could be anybody, friends, family, brother, sister that you just don't have the best relationship with. And I think not enough times do we give that person the time of day to do what he got to do here in this moment. And she not only gave him the opportunity to forgive, I felt like in that moment she did forgive him truly. And that came through with, again, the acting. The acting was superb in this film. I believed everything. Not a lot of actors can nail that emotion, and I think he did, because he's not an over actor, but I think he gives just enough where like you believe him, and she gave just enough where you believe her. It wasn't this over dramatic scene where there's crying and somebody bawling and all that. Well, I think some movies go over the top with it. I thought this was great. Yeah. Then we get, they're holding hands, and he drops her back off at home and says, "Hey, how about we go to dinner this weekend?" She agrees, but I think we all knew
He was gonna blow it
somehow, some way. He wasn't gonna make it, and that hurt. It just hurt. But I'm glad they at least gave us this scene of building him up, so to speak. Here comes the fall, unfortunately. So he goes back to Pam yet again. This is his life now. He's not wrestling, so it's his daughter and Pam, and she's on the main stage dancing. A few people have some money out. He holding up a pink card, looking like a goofball, and she gets down, and they're sitting at the bar. He gives her the card. She's like, "Oh, I'll read it later." He's like, "No, I want you to read it now because I want to see your face when you read it." And I'm thinking, I didn't know. I thought some money was going to be in there, or some kind of trinket, something. I don't know. This is what the card reads. I don't know if y'all caught this, but I paused it and read it. It says, "Dear Pam, you really helped me out with my daughter. I will never forget it. Love you, Randy." Yeah, you can't just be dropping the L word like that. It's just somebody that literally did a favor that's akin to giving you a ride home, and now you love this person. Now, obviously, like Rob said, this is somebody that he probably has been in love with way before this. Just didn't have a way to express it. But he's just going about it all the wrong way. He can't see that this is not only the wrong time, the wrong place. She's at work, and in her line of work, she can't be colored up with one guy holding hands. She's got other clientele that she needs to, so it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, I feel bad for Randy, the character, because he's putting himself out there. But at the same time, it's like, dude, you can't tell this is not the time and place. Like, she's trying to give you a hint.
She kept saying it. "You're the customer. You're the customer." She says that numerous times. "You're the customer."
Yeah, and while I get it, they had more of a friendly relationship. But at the end of the day, you still give her money. You still paid for the time that she was in front of you. So I don't know. I know some people have a hard time separating the two, and it's just one of those cases. And if they end up blowing up, and he didn't take the rejection well at all, and he gets not thrown out, I guess escorted out because he still had a good relationship with the bouncer. But Book again, first time watching between the daughter scene and now,
Man, Randy, I mean, what you were seeing was the separation of the business from him. And in seeing that, you were seeing that he really is a good dude. But he was it seemed like he was trying to understand how to just be a regular person away from the business. And he was making mistakes. But you could see that he was desperately trying, that he was wanting to change, that he wanted a relationship with his daughter, that he wanted this relationship with Cassidy. He just was doing it the wrong way, and maybe a little fast with Cassidy. He was going a little fast on that one. There's a time to do that away from the strip club.
I even thought he was going a little fast with his daughter, like inviting her to dinner that fast. That's kind of soon. I don't know.
He was going a little fast, but his heart was in the right place. It's just he needed to slowly move away. He's just barely retired, so he needed to slowly move away from the business, and he just went at it at warp speed. And as you said, as soon as he said the words dinner, I knew right at that second he's gonna fuck this up. He's about to fuck this up within minutes. And sadly, you could see it coming.
Well, you're talking about a guy, and we talked about it earlier. He's in this profession that requires him to be on the road all the time. Now, I don't know. I don't think they ever mentioned his daughter's mother, but this is a guy, obviously, who doesn't know how to be in a loving relationship. But he's had this heart attack, and now he's facing his own immortality, and he's desperate. He's afraid he's going to die alone. And now all of these loving relationships that he didn't care about in the past when he was on top of the wrestling world, being Randy the Ram, now all of a sudden they come to have meaning for him, but he doesn't know how to have a loving relationship. And he's desperate, so he's reaching out to his daughter, who he hasn't reached out to in years. He's letting Cassie or Pam, whatever you want to call her, letting her know, hey, I love you. And both of these ladies are like, but dude, what you see in this relationship, I don't see. And I just think that goes to his inability to really know what a loving relationship is, because he's probably never had one. He's too busy being Randy the Ram. And now he's in his 50s, facing immortality and desperate, trying to have a loving relationship that he doesn't know how to have.
Right. Sad. So he leaves there after being dejected, and he goes to the only thing he knows. He goes to a wrestling card, and this is where we get the cameo of R-Truth. I forgot the guy's name that he's wrestling. I don't know if anybody recognized him, but I've never really seen him in a major promotion, but I'm pretty sure he's a wrestler in Independence. Good to see Truth here. But then this leads to them partying, and he meets this young girl, and she's like, hey, you want to go party? And he's like, what do you mean by party? What's your definition of party? And then, it's snorting cocaine in the bathroom and hitting that thing in the bathroom.
At least he knew how to do it, unlike what we saw in Ready to Rumble.
Oh God, yeah. He was hitting it pretty hard from the back. Yeah.
Well, he is the Ram.
There you go.
And apparently this led to her place because she mentioned something about firemen. Apparently she has a fireman fetish. And he wakes up, he's wearing fireman boots and shit.
Yeah, at that moment, I'm yelling at the screen, dude, get the fuck out of there.
I mean,
Get out
he's
of
got
there.
posters of firemen and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, somebody's obsessed. All right. And he does this, and he does exactly what you said. He got the fuck out of there. Because it might have been another misery type of deal. Uh, and so he's hungover and drunk from this thing, and he goes home, passes out. Sure enough, oversleeps, misses dinner with his daughter, and I just thought, man, come on, you had everything going for you, and you just had to mess it up. He tries to go over Stephanie's house. Once again, her bitchy girlfriend just like him again, and lets her in. Well, no, he didn't let her in.
He
She
walked
opened
in.
the door, and he walked in, and they start fighting. She leaves. Him and his daughter get into it, and she's just done. She's, I'm done. I'm fed up. I didn't need you. I'm used to life without you. I don't love you. I hate you. I never want to see you again. And throws him out. And I can't think of a more harsh thing to deject a man. Not so much a woman, but your own flesh and blood, your daughter. And that hurts. That hit a little different for me. I mean, I would never. I hope to God that, like I said, that never comes to be a thing. You know, especially when we be in the military. I'm sure eventually I'm gonna have to travel and be away. But I mean, technology nowadays allows for, you know, me to see people and do things, but still, there's nothing like being physically there. So,
That scene is actually my favorite scene in the movie. Is that I think it really displayed that acting chops of Evan Rachel Wood.
oh
She
yeah,
she knocked it out of the park with that scene. And she's going, I think she actually said, I don't hate you. I think I just don't care. I think she
yeah,
said she doesn't hate him. She just didn't care anymore. She just said, stay away from me. I never want to see you again. And you said it earlier, the overcrying can happen, but this wasn't overcrying. They nailed that scene so perfectly. This to me was my favorite scene of the whole movie.
Yeah, it's tragic on so many levels because obviously we feel for Randy. We've become familiar with his character. We like his character, even though we know he's not the best father. He's, maybe not the best guy. He does steroids. He does whatever it takes to stay in the business. But we also know that he had a daughter who he caused tremendous pain, tremendous hurt. But she tried to welcome him back, and he blew it. He blew it, and all the pain that she felt, all of the anger that she had towards him just came rushing back, just from that one missed dinner. He had his one chance, he blew it, and unfortunately, she tells him, I don't know which is worse. I don't love you, or I just don't care. I'm not sure which is worse. Either one, really. Yeah,
yeah, they're both bad.
either way, it's very painful. So obviously, for Randy, that's one of his breaking points in this film.
Yeah, I think that's really what broke him. I think, yeah, the Pam thing kind of just pissed him off when he went and blew some steam off and was whatever. This is what made him decide, you know what, I I know I'm not supposed to wrestle anymore, but I don't have anything left. I literally just lost the only thing that I have, family I have. So what good is it? Nobody loves me. So why does it matter? Calls the promoter back. Hey, match back on. I'm good to go. See him get ready for it. Get his hair ready. Spray tan. Getting, working out a little bit, and here we go. And I did not remember that this was a Ring of Honor set. It's like, wow, huh? Kind of neat. I don't think back in 2008 anybody was thinking about Ring of
Nobody
Honor.
was thinking about Ring of Honor back then.
Exactly. Yeah, because as I'm watching this, I'm like, wow, Ring of Honor. But at that time, I didn't know what Ring of Honor was.
Yeah, yeah. So it was just kind of nice little Easter egg there. So we kind of getting this back and forth with him and Pam. Pam shows up at his trailer. She apologizes. She said, "Well, where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do my thing." Gives her a flyer. Says, "Hey, come check me out." And she's nervous because she knows, dude, you already had one heart attack, and she has to go to work still. Again, and this is her breaking point. She finally realizes you have aged out of being a stripper. She's up there on the main stage doing her thing, and nobody's paying attention. And I like that they don't show that.
Mhm.
It's on the actress to put it to the audience to let us know what's going on. And I just knew the look on her face was like, nobody's watching me. Nobody cares. I'm not what they want to see. Fuck this. And she leaves. And I don't know. This is where this is my only logical problem I have in this whole movie. How far was the strip club from the match? Because Randy had to leave a few hours earlier. That's the only thing. I'm like, she got there a little fast. I don't know. And so I guess I have two. Okay, we've all gone to, a show. Probably we've all seen a house show. You can't just ask, "Hey, where's backstage?" and then go
Backstage. That
backstage.
did bother me. How did she get backstage? So she just said, I'm just here to see Randy. And dude just let her right in. It's like, really? It's that easy to get backstage? Well, shoot, I'm going to try that.
Well, look, now we've already talked about how lovely Marissa Tomei is. Probably a little easier for a lovely woman to get backstage than one of us guys.
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it. Be a little persuasive. But yeah, just those two things. Just I had to just block it out. Just go with it. Just go with it. And they have a little moment where she catches him not only backstage at freaking Gorilla, what we would consider Gorilla. He's standing right behind the curtain, and he's like, "Look, you hear that? Those are literally that's the only thing in my life I have going for me where it's consistently been a love that not only that I've loved, but it's loved me back. People don't love me back." She had a moment. This was her chance to prove to him that she did. And as we see, she let him down in the end. Um, but he goes out for the match. Not to mention, I guess I failed to mention that, the Ayatollah is Ernest the Cat Miller. And this character, the Ayatollah, did get a little backlash for being insensitive. But I mean, hey, at the Iron Sheik, Jinder Mahal. What's the other guy's name? He was actually Italian.
Oh, I know who you're thinking. Who Undertaker choke slammed into
Yeah.
oblivion.
Man,
Yeah.
that used
Muhammad-
to happen. Remember,
Muhammad
Muhammad
something.
Hassan. Muhammad
does
Hassan.
anybody remember Nikita Koloff from NWA? All right, his real name is Scott Simpson.
Scott
He's
Simpson.
from Minnesota. Okay, they used to do that in wrestling all the time, man.
He was a good Russian, though.
Look at Scott Hall was Razor Ramon.
Yeah, he was Miami Chico.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't Hispanic.
No.
Well, he was Cuban.
Muhammad Hassan is Italian. The guy that he just had a nice tan. So,
well,
anyway.
Yokozuna's Samoan. He's not Japanese.
Nope. Nope. But that gimmick worked for him. And I think the way they did it, it wasn't offensive, I guess. But, anything involving Middle Eastern civilization these days is considered offensive. So it is what it is. this match, is kind of more centered around the fact that Randy's having a hard time getting through it. Once that ticker starts having problems, uh, Ayatollah recognizes it, and he's just like, "Hey, man, let's go home." Does a roll. I like that. There was the commentary during the match, though. I liked how he was kind of telling them in the beginning. It seemed like in the beginning of the match, Randy was ramped up because he was laying it in to Ayatollah. He's like, "Hey, man, calm down." And then Ayatollah recognizes that he can't. He burnt out. And he says, "Don't worry about it. I got you the rest of the match." It's things like that that made me appreciate wrestling today. And then I start wondering, like, damn, how many times has this happened where somebody got hurt and the opponent had to carry them? And I've seen it. We all saw it with Undertaker and Brock, where Brock was like, "I got you," because there was a handful of times in that match where Brock had to set himself up for moves and just kind of just fell on him. But I appreciated that. And he said, "Let's go home." Randy hits the super kick and he looks up to the curtain where Pam was standing and she's no longer there. And he's just like, "Well, that was it. My heart stops. My heart stops." Goes up to the top turnbuckle. Time for the Ram Jam. Flies off the turnbuckle, and the credits roll. Now, I am curious to know how y'all feel about that ending because it was inconclusive. So, which is to me, again, another double-edged sword. I like it because it's like, well, we don't know what happened. He could have died right there, or he could have just kept being the wrestler. He's a wrestler. Or we could. Do we really want to see what happened after that? Because we kind of had seen this is his life. This is who he is. He's not going to stop being this guy. So I thought it was a fitting way to end the movie.
Well, I'll jump in. I like it. I like open-ended endings because then it allows me as the moviegoer to kind of write my own into the movie. I think that in movies today, there are too many happy endings, and I'm not trying to be a cynic here. I'm just saying that, I think on some level,
Unrealistic happy endings.
yeah, I think on some level, movies should reflect real life. Real life is not always happy. And based on the movie we just watched and the character study of this wrestler who had all these relationship issues and physical issues and just had a hard time living in regular society, you could see how that might not end happily. So seeing what he went through, I actually think it would have been an insult to the movie to have it all tied up in now a nice, pretty bow at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it that they left us as the movie viewer to kind of write our own ending.
I like the way they ended it. I think we all kind of have an idea what probably occurred here. You could tell he was going. I mean, when that heart's going, it's just done. It's just over. And how many times have we seen in the business killed a wrestler? Whether it be in the ring, whether it be out the ring, we've seen it too many times where this business has unfortunately, in one way, shape, or form, caused an unfortunate death. Whether it because they were doing too many drugs, they were drinking too much, they were partying too much. Maybe they were too dangerous in the ring and they did a move and they died in the ring. I think the character became one of those people that he lived in the ring, his life was the ring, and that was probably the one place in the world that he wanted to go. So maybe it's a sick way, but maybe that's the only way he could go. Because he says it several times, he doesn't want to be alone. And outside the ring, he's alone. Here, he said it in that speech, your family. And, a lot of people, want to be surrounded by their family if they unfortunately have to go. I think for him, this was how he wanted to go. Maybe I'm overthinking again, but
No, I think that's the point.
That's how I think. I think that's what the filmmakers were wanting us to think.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
agree with
that's
both of you.
no. Go ahead, Eric.
I was just saying, I agree with both of you. I think Rob, you're right. They want us to have our own interpretation of how what would have happened, and I agree with you, book that that's probably in a realistic in the way the movie was going. That's probably what would have happened.
And we didn't need to see him. We didn't need to see him
No,
actually
no,
have a
no,
heart attack. I
no,
mean, we don't need to see that. We
no. We
we
saw
already
it
saw
once.
it. We already saw it. There's no reason to show that again. I mean, what do you do after that?
Right.
And the thing about it is that for some viewers, maybe for them, maybe he didn't have a heart attack. Maybe
Right.
he made it through the match, and maybe he reconciled with his daughter and with Pam. I mean, that's the great thing about an ending like this. You can write your own ending. You know, however you feel about the character and his journey, you can write your own end to that journey.
Maybe he kept wrestling. He's the wrestler. I think I'm pretty sure we all going to give this a high grade, but me personally, I'm going to give this movie this movie an A. This is, like I said at the beginning, the best wrestling movie that we're going to review. The one after this is still good, but it's not near this level. The acting in this movie was superb. Um, and I think this movie, and y'all can correct me or maybe disagree. I had Joker vibes with this movie because he was in every single scene, and this was more of a character study. Not Joker vibes as in obviously they're two different characters, but as far as the way the movie is shot, the score, uh, the gritty look to the film, the cinematography, I just felt like it had that Joker feel to it, and it was just as sad. Um, so yeah, for me, I gave this an A. I strongly recommend this film, not only to wrestling fans, but to anybody that just loves movies. This is a great film. I think Mickey Rourke, I think he had some stiff competition that year at the Oscars, but he did win some awards. He got the Golden Globe at least. And it's good to at least be nominated and recognized for, especially a topic of a film that the we as people, the general public shuns wrestling still. So to see it get some limelight is always good. So, Rob, what do you think?
Look, man, A+ for me. This film to me is the best film about wrestling that I have seen, and I think there are some parallels with Mickey Rourke, who ended up playing the lead. I don't know if you all read some of the same things I did. I read a couple of things that Nicolas Cage was also considered for the role of Randy the Ram. And I hate to bring him up, but I read that Hulk Hogan claimed on the Howard Stern show that he was asked to play the role of Randy the Ram. But the director, Darren Aronofsky, says that is not true. He never approached Hogan about the project at all. So, draw your own conclusions. But Mickey Rourke is an actor who was kind of big in the 80s and kind of faded away, had a reputation of being hard to work with. This film was a huge comeback for him. He wasn't even sure he wanted to do the film. He kind of felt about wrestling the way a lot of the general public does. But then after studying for the film and getting to know some of these wrestlers, he decided, yeah, this is a film I want to make. I think he was perfect for the role. He was about 52, 53 when he played this role.
He
He
looked
looked
great.
like a wrestler who was kind of past his prime, but you could tell that he did what he needed to do to maintain the physical condition. I think he was perfect to play this part. And he was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor. He lost to Sean Penn that year. But in his acceptance speech, Sean Penn said to Mickey Rourke, "Welcome back, brother. It's great to see you again." So, man, just A+. What more do you want from a film? It's a great story. It's hard to do a character study because we live in an age where there's special effects and there's CGI and don't get me wrong, I love that stuff too. But it's a lot harder to make a film that's just interesting to watch, that's just about a person's story, a person's journey. This one did it so well. And to do it about wrestling, even if you're not a wrestling fan, I think you can enjoy this just as a great, well-acted film. A plus.
Okay. This was as we said at the beginning, this was my first time watching this movie. And I give this an A. This was a very good movie. And Mr. Eric, as far as that Joker comment, I'm glad you said it because I thought it too. There's an interesting parallel between Randy and Arthur Fleck, in which I think in The Wrestler, every movie's got to have some kind of a villain. And maybe, again, I'm overthinking, but in a weird way, I think the villain in The Wrestler is the fan. Because that's who brought him back. And he wouldn't have come back had it not been for the fan. And we eventually are the ones that end up getting these wrestlers into the addicted to drugs, drinking. Maybe they have bad home lives because they're out there trying to please us. So in a way, this, again, maybe I'm overthinking, but it had this way of making us be the villain, which is the same thing that happened to Arthur Fleck. The world was the villain. And when you can make a character who should not be liked, Arthur Fleck should not have been liked. This character, in a way, should not have been liked. If you break it down, he was a piece of shit to his family. He turned his back on everybody, but you were cheering for him. And when you can make a character like that be somebody you cheer for still, despite the fact that he's flawed, despite the fact that he has got some serious character issues, that speaks to the writing, the directing, and the acting by Mickey Rourke. And again, I already said it with Evan Rachel Wood. She was just lights out. Marissa Tomei, yes, great to look at, but she did a great job acting. She's always been a great actress. So this was a very, very good movie. Definitely, as far as being a realistic wrestling movie, this captured what life is like for a wrestler, not a wrestler who's rich and famous and has got the world in his hands and is the number one thing in the world, but someone who had all that, has lost it, knows he's lost it, but still can't get it out of his system. How many athletes have we said, man, hang it up, stop, just give it up? It's easy for us to say it. I'm guilty of saying this myself. We're all guilty of it. It's just not that easy for these people to give up. They have the world in their hands just from maybe throwing a ball or shooting a shot or whatever. For him, jumping off the top rope. So I give this an A. This was a very well done movie. Great parallels to Joker. Clint Mansell, great soundtrack. I remember, of course, him from Requiem from a Dream. Tremendous soundtrack. This was a
But that's
very,
also
very
a
well
Darren
movie.
Aronofsky film.
Yep. This was just a very, very good movie. And it's, after watching it, I added it to my DVD list for Amazon as far as a DVD Blu-ray to purchase. So this was a very, very good movie, and I'm glad I got to watch it.
Oh, good. We finally got a movie with no dookie.
No, but we saw some ass. That's close enough, I guess.
Well, you also got some titties in this,
And some vomit. I mean,
but yeah, I think we all agree this was a great reprieve, and it was nice to look back. I mean, I look, I'm one of those action movie heads too, but I enjoy these type of movies. I love the Joker. I thought it was the best movie of that year. This another one that hits home. It's just one of those. I enjoy these movies. Well done, well acted, like we all said. And we hope that you all enjoyed our review on this movie, The Wrestler. Make sure you check us out on social media, Third Generation Wrestling Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can listen to our show on YouTube, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Our most recent show was the Royal Rumble post show. We also have the best and worst of 2020, as well as our first episode on our road to WrestleMania. So all of that is available now. Make sure you check out MJ Book, his podcast, The Countdown 2020. I'm laughing because I started your cartoon countdown, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, top 20."
Oh, come on.
It's two-parter.
Oh God,
It's a two-parter. You haven't heard. You haven't heard nothing yet.
I was shoveling stuff, so I put it on. I was like, 20?
It's two-parters. Two parts. There was no way I could cut that down. It's just me, so I can do that for myself.
Hey, it's your show.
Yeah, I guess, but I just thought you would, cut it down to a hard 10.
Mm-mm.
But anyway, check that out. He counts down numerous topics, but we'll be doing a few wrestling countdowns leading into WrestleMania here shortly. Yeah, I think that's all I got. Mr. Rob?
Hey, always want to thank the listeners. We appreciate y'all. Let's hear from you. Let's hear some suggestions for shows.
Yep. And I also note this will be the last episode that I will be going by this moniker. I will no longer be Mr. Eric. I have a new name.
No. Oh God.
And
jeez.
just like wrestling.
Breaking news.
We all must change and come out with new gimmicks. Stay relevant. So with that, we'll speak to you all again next week.
You're not gonna say it.
I'm retiring. Mr. Eric is retiring, and there will be a new moniker on the next episode. We'll speak to you all again. Take care.
Boy.
I'm nervous.
When did this all come about?
I got the doc working on a name for you. So
For me?
there you go. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh man, I don't know.
I just asked you to think of stuff.
Why Doc?
What doc?
Because the shit that comes out of his mouth, I don't know. I just threw it out to him and said, "Hey, if you think of something."
Curious. I'm scared, but I'm curious at the same time.
Yeah, after hearing the shit he said on the Royal Rumble show.
Oh man, that show. I think we all may have had one too many on that one.
Well, I was hammered. Okay.
I was too. I was pretty hammered myself.
But listening back, I think that is the funniest. I know I say this a lot, but we just keep topping ourselves. I think that was the funniest show from the twat flop to
Twat drop.
Well, man, look,
the Mandingos.
The Mandingos.
When I said that, Mike thought that was the worst thing he ever heard. And then sure enough, without you and I discussing it, you said the same thing.
Same thing. Oh, shit.
I wasn't saying, Rob, you were wrong. I said I get what you're saying. You're not wrong. It's just wrong.
Right. But then when Eric said it, you just lost it because you threw it in. You said, "Well, Rob, Rob didn't think it was good when he was talking about how when Big E and Bobby,
right.
And you said, "Well, Rob didn't think it was very good," and that's when Eric chimed in and said exactly what I said.
Well, as I was saying it, because I was like, "Oh yeah, these two big black men." I was like, "Mandingos." Mandingo.
That's exactly what I said. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, "Okay, Vince loves his Mandingo fights."
Oh God, that was so damn funny.
So I guess UFC has black on black crime, and I guess wrestling has Mandingo fights.
Hey.
That shit was so.
Oh Jesus.
Part of the.
Yeah, because are we talking about movies that star wrestlers or that are about wrestling?
Eventually.
Okay, because there's like Beyond the Mat and some stuff like that.
But Beyond the Mat is more of a documentary, kind of hard.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Are you meaning things like what? The Scorpion King because it stars The Rock?
We were doing it, and we tried, but we
We
failed.
did.
The recording failed.
That was going to be our first movie review, and I
Mhm.
watched it. I took notes, but we never recorded the show, or we tried to, but
We tried to, and we couldn't get it done, and then we never got back to it.
right.
Oh
So
boy.
yeah, that has been attempted.
Just don't dip any more Hogan movies. There's
No, I
the
don't
rest
think
of
No
them.
Santa with muscles, no.
No Mr. Nanny, no Three Ninjas at Witch Mountain, no
No,
Thunder in Paradise,
no.
no Suburban Commando, none
Suburban
of those.
Commando. Yeah,
None
no, I
of
won't be doing that.
those. And that's got Taker in it, and I don't want to see that.
We won't be doing the Marine and no shit like that.
Oh God, no. None of them.
No.
Well, now the Miz was in some of them. You wouldn't even watch those.
No, I have not watched any of them since the first one.
And I think Orton was in one of them.
Yeah, Orton was in one.
No, Orton did the Marine. No, he did one of John Cena's movies, but it was a sequel. It was a different.
Was it 12 rounds?
12 rounds.
12
that's
rounds.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also
okay.
the Chaperone. I mean, there's some really horrific things we could.
I do, however, want to watch.
Head with a Big Show.
Yeah, that was Big Show. Edge
Well,
had one, Breaking Rules or whatever it is.
Yeah, Becky was in that one, and Lana.
But I think I do want to review. I do want to revisit Fight for Halloween. See No Evil, because I think.
Oh,
that's.
Yeah,
Oh, no, that one. Yeah. I'd
there's
watch
nothing wrong with that one.
Yeah, I thought that was. That was
Did
right up
anybody see
Kane's
the
alley.
sequel? Did anybody see
did.
the sequel? What'd you think?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Okay.
I think the first one's, as usual, first one's better, but it wasn't
right.
bad. It wasn't bad.
I worked at the theater when See No Evil came out, and they got people who came out liked it. So
yeah, second one wasn't bad. I think that's the one that was directed by this. Oh God, I forget their names. The Solka sisters or whatever. They're twins.
The Wachowskis?
Yeah. No, twin sisters. These are twin sisters.
Oh, okay. Well, the Wachowskis are sisters now, but they were brothers, but they're sisters now.
No, these are actual.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Gothic women that directed it.
Did anybody watch The Leprechaun with Hornswoggle?
Hell no.
Okay, me neither. I just wondered.
No.
Hell no.
I think I need a disclaimer. Movies that went to the theater is what I'm talking about with wrestlers.
Okay.
Not direct to DVD. That's why I said no Marines, no 12 rounds, none of that shit.
Didn't Marine go to the theater?
I thought 12 rounds did too.
Maybe the first one did. But
yeah, the first one did.
Go to the theater, and I sat in there and watched that god awful shit.
I didn't do that.
Now, what about Eric? Did you see The Call with David Otunga and Halle Berry?
I did.
I actually enjoyed that one.
I enjoyed that one. Matter of fact, that was when I met David Otunga. When the movie came out, that's when I met him at the gym.
Okay.
It literally just came out. And after I got done talking to him, I took a picture with him. Real nice guy. I said, hey, man, I'm about to go see a movie this week. He was like, yeah, go do that. As he's walking away, he's like, yeah, go do that.
Okay, I actually enjoyed that one.
I never saw it. I never saw that.
You
one.
might
it's not
look, man.
groundbreaking.
You're the cynic of the show, so I don't know, but you might be surprised.
I guess that's my nickname, the Cynic.
Well, you earned it.
You put that in the back of the shirt. MJ Book. In quotations, the Cynic. Oh man.
Right.
And then it goes on the back of the doc shirt.
Doctor
Order.
And I'm the one that thought of that one.
Yeah, you did. You did.
My contribution.
Yeah.
And
that's a good one. That's a perfect
Doctor of Wordonomics.
That's a perfect nickname for him.
Oh man, it is holding true. Because I have never been so caught off guard when he said the twat flap. What?
Yeah, I mean,
I called it something similar with Rob. I called it the pussy drop as soon as it happened because That's what it was. It was ridiculous.
I must have taken notes and didn't see it. But yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how you could have missed that.
I saw it. I don't know if it has an actual name. I guarantee it's not
No, it's
either
not
of those
Flop Flop.
names. But
No.
yeah,
No.
If
I
she
wonder
starts
if
using it
it
on a
actually
regular,
has an actual name for it.
if she starts using it on a regular basis, every
I
time
guess-
it's done, it's like, oh, here comes the twat drop.
Oh,
Even DeVince
Well,
to
we'll
put that
see.
on a shirt.
oh, Eric, you might want to read this text from Blake.
Oh
Hey,
yeah, I'm
Eric,
looking. Oh,
yeah, you might want to check that out.
I'm looking.
I might want to check it out.
Oh wow.
Look at Mandy Rose's Instagram. Oh, geez, that's got to be for you, Eric.
I'm looking it up too.
That's for you, Eric.
That's for every man. If you don't like me, there's something wrong.
I don't like Mandy Rose. No, thank you.
You're crazy.
Look, man, I'm just saying.
You want to see it? Yeah, you see it?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for it to load.
Man, Mandy Rose walked up to you at a party.
I'm
throwing it at you.
not that
You ain't
attracted.
saying no.
No,
You ain't.
I
saying
don't.
No.
I don't think she's that hot, man. Sorry,
I don't believe
I
you.
don't. I don't.
I don't believe it either.
I don't.
I don't believe you saying no.
I'm saying no. I'm not attracted to her. I think she's ugly. I've always thought that. I remember.
Yes.
I thought that back in the day when she was on Tough Enough.
Okay.
I remember her on Tough Enough. I've always thought that about her. I don't get it. She has one of those too much surgery faces. That drives me nuts.
Well, if you think that's ugly, I have no idea what you think is pretty.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You know
Who?
good and hell well who I thought. You saw my monument to her right next to my.
Bailey? Are we talking about Bailey?
Well,
Oh,
I
he's
don't.
talking about Stephanie.
Well, okay. Look,
Stephanie
Yeah,
is fine, but damn it, Mandy Rose is on a whole nother level.
Not to me.
okay.
I think you got that
least
little
I'm-
thing going.
At least I'm consistent. At least I'm consistent.
Oh, I've been consistent. I got Mandy Rose T-shirt upstairs.
I know. I've seen it. Unfortunately, I saw that shirt. Okay, I just saw it. Yeah, whatever. Whatever. Not impressed.
Well, again, if everybody likes it, you don't. that's to
Mr.
your
Contrarian.
yeah.
I'm not impressed. Sorry. Never happened. Never will be.
All right, fellas.